But, so my son is Aaron, and he's gonna be graduating this year.
Hello, Aaron.
Hi, Aaron.
And so, we've been navigating that whole transition and just have had a difficult time. So as soon as they walked in the room, I started asking the questions, to see what kind of different information they might have for me. So that's really it in a nutshell. So this is really informal. If you have questions, please ask. If you have heard bits and pieces as you were coming in, because I was already talking to them, you can circle back and we can go from there. And if you don't have questions, I'll keep going.
So my name's Gary, this is David. We're from an organization called the Arc of Ohio. We've been around since 1950, and we're the lead civil rights organization for people with developmental disabilities in their families. We're like the NAACP, an anti-defamation league of the disability movement, but we're not the organization that's usually out on the street with picket signs. We tend to be around a conference table because we were founded by families, and we still have moms and dads that will lie down on I-70 for us. So when you have that kind of clout, it's not financial, it's, you don't mess with an angry mom.
Yeah.
And people know that. So it will help us if you tell us, like, does anyone, I know Eric's got a waiver. Does anyone else have a waiver? Okay. And
Do you know what a waiver is?
yeah,
Sort
so
of.
we'll go through
Sure.
that. How many 18 and above? About below 18. How many are still in school? Okay. Okay, one, and he's gonna be leaving, okay.
My son's
Just for another-
senior, yeah.
He's a senior?
Another month.
And you know that you have a right to stay until you're 22? Okay, okay, that's a family decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so, this is real broad.
Yeah, no.
So how many people have Medicaid already? Okay, everyone's already got Medicaid? You all have SSI as well?
Yep.
You haven't applied, okay. So Medicaid is the Obamacare of the 1960s. It's a health insurance program for poor people. Well, we were around, I was not an adult, but I was around in the 1960s. It was part of President Johnson's Great Society. And our families, back in the 1960s, when it was created, said, and if it weren't for me, my son with a disability would be poor. Therefore, Medicaid is eligible if you're poor or you're age blind and disabled and also poor. If you're age blind or disabled, it's called ABD Medicaid. It's the same health insurance plan. It's just some of the rules to get in are a little easier for someone with Down syndrome or cerebral palsy or autism. But what's important to remember in Medicaid, it's not the label of autism or Down syndrome that gets you in. Disability under Medicaid is inability to hold down a full-time job. They call it gainful employment. So it's what we call a functional definition. So if you've got a loved one that looks and acts like they have a disability and you have to go in for an interview, take them with you. If they don't look and act like they have a disability, leave them at home and take all the paperwork you wanted to burn. Because the people at Medicaid on a local level is the Job and Family Services Office, are processing paperwork for everyone that's applying for Medicaid. And part of their training is that we as families are faking it to get Medicaid.
Okay.
That's why you get the reaction. People who actually testified in Washington, those parents, they're just faking it. So before they do the paperwork, they have an eyeball test that 23-year-old with a bachelor's degree in history that got a civil service job is looking at your child and determining whether they're faking it or not. So, and even someone with autism that's has very few verbal skills might have a 2 or 3 minute loop where we taught everyone, be polite, be well dressed, be clean, And the caseworker at Medicaid and the caseworker at Social Security, when you apply for SSI, will look at your son or daughter and say, do you want to work and can you work? And they're gonna say yes. And they just disqualified themselves.
I think that's the hard part about transition, right? And when we're in the school system, we talk about the positives and dream your dreams and all that, and then you're outside of that system and you're dealing with negatives.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a system that's based on, funding's based on what you can't do. Okay?
Worst case scenario.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, there you
They
go.
always say, just grab your child Saturday night when the meds have worn off
Yes.
and they've really had a bad week. That's, and you mentioned that.
Yeah.
It's all worst case scenario. And it can't be, I'm teaching them how to drive and he wants a job and you've got how you describe your child to the people you love and would care for. Not that you're not gonna love and care for the case management system. They look at your child differently than you do, and you can't get in the door on positives. Yeah, so Medicaid is a health insurance plan. How it's different from Blue Cross Blue Shield is that Medicaid includes something called long-term care. If I think someday I'm gonna have to be in a nursing home, I gotta buy that insurance. Medicaid comes with it. And long-term care under Medicaid is, if I'm old, it's a nursing home. If I have a disability, it's what you think of as a state institution. That's long-term care. But back during, I always feel old when I say this part, during Ronald Reagan's administration, we had Medicaid. Remember, we've had it since the 1960s. And it's always moms. There was a group of moms that had young adults who were on Medicaid, and they said, we need help. And they said, and we've got this institution down the road. It'd be looted with 99 other people, but yeah, there it is. We got you covered. They filed a lawsuit against the Reagan administration, and before it went very far in the courts, Ronald Reagan said, okay, not him, but we're going to reach a settlement with you. If you agree that the services we provide for you in your home and in the community never cost more than what that institution costs, and it's never really provided in that institution other than occasionally some respite care, will allow you to get money in the home and the community. But you've got to sign a waiver for your right to that institution. That's all a waiver is. The institution is brick and mortar. Columbus Developmental Center on West Broad Street is an institution that you probably never wanted. It's funded 60% by the federal government and 40% by the state of Ohio. And if I move into Columbus Developmental Center, it's my Medicaid card that pays for it. If I'm on a waiver, if I'm offered a waiver in Ohio, from Pennsylvania, Indiana, anywhere else, it's 60% federal, 40% state. But we've got our levies, which most other states don't have. So in most cases, if I'm on a developmental disability waiver, the federal government's paying 60% and the county levy's paying 40% for services in the home and the community. So a waiver is, in state law, federal law says I can be on a waiting list to get that waiver. It's not a place. The intermediate care facility, which is the term for the institution, is brick and mortar. Just like a nursing home is brick and mortar, if I'm 59 years of age or older, and I'm Medicaid eligible, and I want to stay out of a nursing home, I can get something called the passport waiver, where the federal government pays 60%, and the state of Ohio through the Department of Education. So there are 11 waivers. I mean, 3 of them are DD. Seven. Why do I think 11?
There's
Seven.
seven. So they're all Medicaid waivers. There's 7 total in Ohio. Typically, when we're talking about county board services, there are 3 what we call DD waivers. Your level 1, yourself, and your IO, individual options, okay? You'll also hear institutions referred to, there are 8 what are called state-run developmental centers, they're called that, so if you hear that term. And then in Ohio, we have a ton of private ICF, intermediate care facilities, where people go for services.
So if you ever need 24-hour care in a facility, that's Medicaid card eligible.
So
There are very few openings, by the way, but there's Heinzerling, which concentrates on usually kids and young adults with pretty physical disabilities. The Columbus Developmental Center, it's very challenging to get into a state facility. They like to refer to themselves as emergency rooms. But we've got thousands of people living in private facilities. So that's
So
when
follow the money, right? Think about that. So again, 60 cents on the dollar comes from the federal government for that. 40% comes from the state treasury if you're in a private ICF or a developmental center, okay?
And
So
most
keep
of our-
that in mind as we talk through this discussion about waivers and the difference between state-funded waiver being mostly funded, okay?
And most of our DD waivers, 40% comes from the local county, but
Yes.
not always.
Not always, yeah.
Nothing is always in our field. Because 60% of it is federally funded, the federal government doesn't have a deal with Fairfield County. They have a deal with the state of Ohio. So the deal is they have to, all waivers have to be evenly distributed. And theoretically, every Ohioan with a developmental disability has equal access to these waivers, but we fund them 88 different ways through our county board. So every once in a while, if statistically it looks like Franklin County has more waivers per capita than Fairfield, they may offer Fairfield a state-funded waiver. They're not gonna offer Fairfield, they're gonna offer it to Hocking or one of the poorer counties.
Yeah, if you look at Morrow County.
Fairfield's not a poor
didn't pass
county.
a levy, yeah, so there are things like that.
Yeah. So you can ask anytime, because this is broad and it takes 3 times to figure it out, and then it'll change.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
as I've been doing this,
Right.
and I think Ann can agree with me, when I look to find private providers, because the county is not providers of
Right,
service.
right.
So I can hear that again and again and again. They're supposed to coordinate that service, right?
Right.
They don't know the service providers.
Right.
Like, I have to track them
Yep.
down. I have to find them.
Right.
I have to know that they exist here in Fairfield County. I have to know that they're based in Circleville, that they provide services here in Fairfield County. Like I never, and I've asked for a comprehensive list, and I don't get one. When I've given them information that I've found out that I know that they don't have, they're just like, well, I can't call and know that, or that would be a full-time job for me. And I'm like, okay, but I did call, and I now
That's
know
their job.
this.
They're not allowed to recommend a
Right.
provider,
Right.
but their job includes helping
Knowing
find
that, shouldn't they know
Yeah.
the
There's
service
a-
providers
Did
there?
they direct you at all to the search engine at the state level?
No.
Okay.
I-
It's
still to
terrible,
this
it's
day,
hard
no,
to
no.
navigate, but there's actually a search
Yeah,
engine
it's just fresh.
that lists every provider in the state of
Yeah.
Ohio. And if you're good at technology, which I am not, you can do Fairfield County, different
Wait,
providers.
okay, I'll take that back. Maybe Susan Barnett did mention that,
Well,
but,
I don't think it's up to date, because I don't think.
No, so here's the
but it
challenge.
was giving us the centralized, like,
Right.
they,
Yeah, so
the
here's
same
the-
thing I was doing, yeah.
Here's the challenge in our system, right? When we talk about waivers and people getting waivers or not getting waivers, there are 2 types of providers in our system. Independent providers that are certified and agency providers that are certified, okay? So an independent provider certified through the state, bills the state directly, gets paid through the state. That's how that works. There are over 11,000 independents certified in our state.
And once your child becomes 18, you can be certified and paid to be an independent provider.
Me?
Yes.
I
Okay,
can.
yes.
Yes.
Because, yeah, they're telling me, because I'm going to move back from Florida, trying to get through this system for a long time, since August
Right.
of last year. And they're saying that they'll put her on a board, some kind of board,
Yeah.
and they'll put out there for providers that might want
Yeah,
to
it's a
take
request
her.
for
But how am I
Yeah,
supposed to know who
RFP.
these people
So
are?
your child has a waiver already?
No,
Okay.
I don't know. Nobody's
You
told
would
me.
know, you would know.
You would know,
You would know,
yeah,
because
right.
you
No.
have to sign this
Yeah.
much paperwork. So one of the things we did, because
I'm
we've been around
confused.
for a long time.
Okay, well,
About,
we'll try this
how
one
long has
back.
Family Choice existed? 7 years now, 6 or 7? During the last administration, we were yelling about the same thing. And the State Department at the time said, if you can do it better, here's some seed money. So the Arc of Ohio created a program called Family Choice. This is not a marketing thing, this is just what we did. Parents can be, if your child's at least 18, you've always been allowed to be certified as an independent provider and receive funding to support your own son or daughter. That's always been the case. Well, people don't necessarily want to do that.
I do not.
So the Arc of Ohio became certified as a provider. We're an agency provider. We created a program called Family Choice, where you name the Arc of Ohio in this plan, and we either employ you or the people you want us to employ. And we give the family hire and fire authority. So it was designed by, almost everyone has a network. My spouse, my cousin, my neighbor, Becky works for us. And she had been an independent provider for years. And it's person-centered. And what we found was, I don't want someone coming to my house where I'm afraid to leave my delivery.
Yep.
Or, they smell like pot and I don't want them in my house, or
Well,
I wouldn't trust them with my kids. So this one is, we don't advertise, you advertise, you find whoever you want.
The network, people we are.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's, so we've helped several, they tend to be young men who are on waivers and going to college, and we've been able to, they've hired their roommates to support them. Because it's a functional deficit. Maybe I have autism, and I'm Sheldon Cooper. And I can, I'm a physics major, but I don't remember to put my socks on. Or I have cerebral palsy and I need someone to get me up, or I have spina bifida. In those cases, we've been able to, you know who you want, hire you, go find someone, and they'll hire their roommates to help them out.
Okay.
We hire them, they become our employees.
Can I have an employment sheet, please?
Yeah, but it really,
So at the core of the program, here's what it's really all about. Aaron should have a right to choose who provides that care for them.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's all
especially,
Yeah.
about, it's person-centered. So
Right.
it is about, most of the care that's provided to people with disabilities oftentimes is intimate, personal care, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So they should be the ones, to the best of their ability, to pick who provides that care to them.
yeah, the one guy that we helped through college has a master's degree from Vanderbilt and is teaching in the Columbus area. And his comment to me was, Gary, I want to pick the guy that wipes my butt.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
You know, I don't want just anyone.
Absolutely. And they
yeah.
should have that choice.
Right.
100%.
That's right.
So a lot of times it's siblings.
Yep.
If you're 16 and on a waiver and you've got an 18-year-old brother, maybe with a little financial incentive, he's gonna take me to the movies with him for the first time. It really, and it worked really well for college students or, yeah. So it really varies, but so there are ways, but you gotta have the waiver first to be able to do that. But having said that, we have county boards that use local funds. They like the program so much that.
I was told I had to use local funds before they would apply for her for a waiver.
Well, a lot of counties do that. Belmont County.
That's what I
which
was
is
told.
Down the
Which is
river.
why I don't think
Does that.
none of us have waivers, is that's what everybody's involved with. You're gonna use local dollars, and I think that's their way of funneling you into a choice to then
Right.
use the waiver.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that,
Well, you have-
Well,
or to make you give up, cause I felt like giving up.
Or
And the
give
county
Well, we're
has
going
that
around.
Authority to do that. If
Well,
they
you
can
have-
use local dollars,
Yeah.
they can use local dollars.
Right, it's just like if I complete a needs assessment, you gotta remember, if I go through the needs assessment, it doesn't mean that they have to give me a waiver. If they can meet that need, they can do it with local funding. If you refuse that local funding, then you're not gonna get that waiver.
Okay,
You
so
see where I'm
that's why
going
you
with
have
that?
to be connected to
Right.
DD.
Yeah,
So-
that's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, you can't, it's like them saying to you, you asking for something, and they say, well, here's a yellow life vest, and you say, no, I don't want that, I need a red.
Do you want one of these?
But you have to take what's offered.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's good.
Okay.
Right.
In what
Can
year?
I make a
I might have to
comment?
scan it and upload it.
I'm a retired provider, Gary, I was on the
We
coalition
did
board
this.
forever.
Oh, okay,
Brenda George.
yes.
But
Okay.
anyway,
I know so many people virtually or over the phone.
yes,
that-
well, we've met long ago, but I live down here.
And you emailed me recently.
Pardon me?
Didn't you email
I
me
did.
recently? Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yes,
Okay.
I have another network, but I'm supporting the parents.
Okay.
And I guess that's the biggest issue that, I mean, I've worked in the DD system. But it just seems to get more perverse as time goes on. I'm speaking very openly here. It does seem, as Amy had said, that it is developed, so it is conjured up so that parents want to give up.
Mhm.
And it is developed so there really is not a choice, that the system is forcing people to be a part of the DD system, when in reality, the DD system is nothing but a bunch of obstacles.
Yeah.
Seriously. And this is not helpful.
And yeah, him and I
People.
talk about this often in our travels about, it does feel that way, right? I keep going to these different doors, right? And I keep knocking and I keep getting different
I call it
answers.
The
And-
wizard,
and-
well, the
and
wizard
finally,
behind
I'm
the
to
green
point where
wall.
I'm like, I think they really want me to give up.
Yes.
I think they want me to just
Yeah.
stop
So,
bothering.
and David, it's not that it feels that way, it is that way.
Yeah.
That is the
Yeah.
reality of the way these systems are. It just is a bunch of series of closing doors, and parents don't have the energy. To waste.
I'm
I
getting
think
old,
Amy
I'm
said
getting
it
tired.
earlier. I'm trying to figure out how to make it through today.
Yes,
And then I gotta start
that's
over
it.
tomorrow and the next
Yes.
day. So how do we get help?
So sorry again.
No, that's a good
Yeah.
segue into some of this other stuff.
So there are different, there's gonna be 1,000 assessment tools,
Yeah.
1,000 eligibility
this.
requirements. So if you've been interacting with your county board, your child's gone through something called an OEDI or a COED.
Yes.
A COEDI is a Children's Ohio Eligibility Determination Instrument. Right, and at 16, it becomes an OEDI
Yes.
for adults. And it is a series of questions like, can you go to the bathroom by yourself? Can you identify a quarter? Well, I know what a quarter is, but I don't know what it's used for, you know, or I can identify a fire alarm, but the alarm goes off, then
I don't know what to
standing
do.
here. So that's an eligibility determination for county board local funding. And the original law back in 1967 is that county boards serve year 3 and up. And early intervention is help me grow, okay? So that's an eligibility for the county board. For the waiver, it's a different eligibility requirement. Waivers are birth to death, not 3 and up. So we have toddlers on waivers. And the eligibility for a waiver is first meeting what's called level of care. I function like a stereotypical guy with Down syndrome in 1967. It doesn't matter the label I've got, whether it's autism or Prader-Willi, it's how I function. So I can have an IQ of 165, but if I don't know how to get out when the alarm goes off, I can maybe drive, but I can't socially interact, or
Yeah.
my physical disability prevents me from doing. So it's all that functional stuff, but it's birth to death. If a county board, if you say you need help, and the county board said, well, come back when you're 3, they're telling you the wrong thing. They're still thinking like it's 1967. Waivers, which we're gonna talk about the needs assessment, are birth to death. So if I'm 2, and I can prove that my 2-year-old needs more than a typical 2-year-old, and that's challenging. I mean, a lot of 2-year-olds are in diapers, but at 2, I may also be in the wrong line. There's something called the home care waiver, which is for children and adults that have more medical issues. So the home care waiver is often given to preemies so they can leave the hospital. And it's more nursing and medically focused. But thank God most preemies get better. So as soon as they get better, they stop functioning at that level and they lose their waiver. But if I get on a DD waiver at 10 because of my intellectual and physical disabilities, chances are I'm gonna be on it for the rest of my life. It becomes an entitlement. I'm not entitled to a waiver, but once I get it, I'm entitled to everything it offers for as long as it exists and as long as I continue to function like I have a disability.
However, it doesn't mean it's easy to find.
No.
The providers for those
So
services, right?
remember, a waiver is not a place.
Right.
A
It's a
waiver
funding stream.
is a funding stream. It's like a voucher.
Okay,
for
so let
services.
me, so,
Yes, yes.
but we have a lot of people in here that I feel like should have already had needs assessments,
Right.
and we don't.
So the law says that
I think we
if you ask for it, it has to be given to you very quickly.
30 days.
Then
But
I simply
30
need to
days, yes.
ask for it.
It's within
Yeah.
30 days.
Well, you
But-
have it, so fill it out, you can hand it to.
Well, what I suggest not doing, fill it out, but don't hand it to them.
Yeah.
Fill it out
And
and
then
so
let them do
that
their own assessment,
they need to assess it themselves. Because
Yes.
if you,
just like we did the acute.
Just
yeah,
like I did
and
the
the example I use is you don't go to the doctor and say, I know I have an appendix, an
Right.
appendicitis.
Right.
You let the
You don't tell
doctor
them
down there.
that.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That
Play
makes
the
sense.
game, let them, ask for a copy, make sure the answers are the correct. But no, if you're getting local funds, they can say, well, it's not, your local funding is meeting your needs. You have to prove above and beyond. So it might be, my family is falling apart. I haven't gone out to dinner with my wife in 5 years. I need some respite.
Yeah.
They can say,
Yeah.
okay, we'll provide funding for you to hire someone. Even if you can't find
Have you
anyone,
ever heard that come out of anybody's mouth?
okay.
Like, I've been in survival mode, saying I don't know about tomorrow. That's never, like, I'm not kidding when
So-
I say, and I've even said it about other people, like, I've been like, you need to call them and check on them, because they need help. And, like, I know it's not my
Falls on
case,
deaf
but
ears.
I don't even know if they call the other people to give them help.
So, because this is a Medicaid program, your due process rights, like school, but it's different in that you have a right to a due process hearing if your services were denied or delayed. And it's not the county board that does the hearing, it's the Department of Job and Family Services. So if I would say I want a needs assessment, I wouldn't be that bold. And you can say, it's an art meeting and
Grab one.
but we are gonna be updating this, they've made it more
You can go
electronic.
off the table.
But there's a phone number on here where you call the State Job and Family Services and
Or you want to-
Yeah.
JFS and Medicaid will order the county to do the needs assessment. Doesn't mean you're gonna get a waiver, it does, but it begins the process.
It
Yeah,
just means
Becky.
that we
A
get it.
couple things. We are a world of acronyms. So when he says level of care, you will see the SSA, you will see it on Facebook, you will see it everywhere, wrote as an LOC. So if you see LOC, you're talking level of care,
Okay.
okay? And should it not be, my husband, I need to go out to dinner, no, my kid needs a break from us.
You're right.
So
And
you
she's
said
right.
that
It all has to be about your child.
Yeah, it is supposed to be
Yeah.
person-centered.
It actually is, because where I said Medicaid and SSA have been trained that we are faking it to get benefits, sometimes it will say, well, this parent knows she can get paid if her
Yeah,
kid gets away.
that's almost the attitude I have seen.
So there is especially now that as of January 1st, parents of minor children can also be paid under a lot of different scenarios. But since none of you are, but it.
But
yeah,
they've
because
also talked about that.
Yes.
And that's only if there are no providers to take that.
If there are no providers and you have to have an
And
extraordinary
so they
care.
only
and-
have one in the county.
Yeah, so
One paid parent provider.
it's scary.
am I in?
It's at 40%
What
now.
county is this?
entitlement.
Fairfield, okay.
But
So that's the name
here's
of
the
it.
due process stuff. So what do I boy, I've got a whole box here.
Well, we've gone in a lot of different directions.
So,
I'm sorry.
No,
It's not your fault.
No,
It's
it's, and we will come back
Yeah.
anytime. So, you touched on it a little bit. How many have guardianship? You don't have to have it, but if you do, so when you file for due process, or you start the paperwork, they will often say, what authority do you have to do this? So you were asked for your guardianship. You don't have to always have guardianship, but you have to have a backup. So there are a couple ways to have backup. You
What are
can,
you looking for?
it's
What are you looking for?
authorized well, this one, okay. In DD land,
Oh, I've done the authorized representative.
okay,
Because when you turned 18, there's a lag for when I
Right.
could file to get guardianship and when I could actually get
Right.
guardianship. Because the court has to make that determination.
right. In Ohio, you're competent until a judge says you're not competent.
Right.
Therefore, a competent person can sign a statement saying, my mom is my representative. Now, there are two different types. There's an authorized representative specifically for DD, and there's an authorized representative for Medicaid and Social Security.
Do they
And there's
have
one
to
for
sign?
OLG as well.
Yeah.
Okay, or can they make a mark and have a
Whatever is
witness?
considered their legal signature, which would be a mark.
Okay, a mark and
Yeah.
have a witness.
And usually with a mark, you
Yeah,
need,
that's it.
like a witness. It doesn't have to be notarized.
And Rachel.
No.
But,
I don't think I even needed a witness, although he did sign his name. And with their Britco software now, he could have typed his
Right,
name.
right.
No.
The major difference is, if I've been declared incompetent and there's a guardian, only the judge can change that.
Correct.
If I name David as my authorized rep, he can fire me at any time. You know, even with power of attorney.
Right.
It's up to me who gets to do that, and if I'm angry at my mom, I can fire her. And even if I maybe don't know what I'm saying,
Yeah, we're supposed to.
if I say you're fired, because I'm legally competent. But you'll get those questions occasionally, never used to be. I mean, JFS and Medicaid they never question parents. They do now. So be aware that that could happen. So once I got a waiver, let's assume we all got a waiver. You've done the needs assessment. Make sure that the answers are all correct and their worst case scenario. The biggiest things are in all these assessments are, you might get questions like, can you go to the bathroom by yourself? It's okay.
You're like, we've done this.
Yeah,
No, we're all
it's all
family.
good.
It's like.
It's all good.
But questions like, can you go to the bathroom by yourself? If you haven't pulled up your pants in the last 20 years, you don't go to the bathroom by yourself. You know, families are so used to doing
Yeah, I know.
everything.
Wow.
It's the hard-
We sometimes don't
Yeah,
know
what's
what we're.
normal for us is not
Right.
normal for others.
Right, it's
Right,
not
right.
normal to not, yeah.
Yeah.
If you have a teenager especially, teenage guy that's masturbating in a family room, you've got to tell people. Anything of a sexual nature, colostomy bags are a big thing, that's an automatic, you know, anything that's different. I helped a mom in Lorain County last year. She has 2 sons with Down syndrome that are adult. She went through the assessment, it was turned down. We went to a hearing and she lost. Then we were in the parking lot and she said, I am so glad my eye healed up. What? Well, one of her sons had punched her in the eye. And the other son had wandered off onto the highway.
No.
But she didn't want to tell
hard for
anyone
people to
because
say
she
that,
thought,
so-
oh, they're gonna think maybe I'm
They're
not a
gonna
good
take her
mom.
away.
She's a bad
That's
parent.
They're gonna take them
exactly
away.
They're
And
scared of
that,
those
you know,
things,
and I went in, told the county, and she got waivers for both her sons. But you have to
You have
be
to-
brutally honest,
Yeah.
and just explain it the way it is. And, the hard part is sometimes you're gonna be with your adult child while you're saying things that they don't want you to say.
Correct.
But
It is what it is.
it actually is what it is, part of understanding my own challenges is to admit I've got these challenges.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and.
Can't fix the problem.
Right,
Don't fix the
right.
problem.
Can I butt in and tell
Yes,
my
yes,
suggestion?
Yes.
Okay, what I always tell parents that ask me, doing this assessment, pretend you're videotaping your day, okay? Just pretend you're walking in your house and you're videotaping your day. What are you doing automatically? Okay, Eric, go brush your teeth. Okay, now I'm following in, I'm putting the lid on the toothpaste, I'm putting the toothpaste away, I'm making sure the water's turned off. What am I actually doing and not even thinking about it? Okay. There's a whole lot of things you're doing you don't even think you're doing, and you're actually give them a piece of candy. Does it give it back to you? Do you unwrap and then hand it to them? Can you open a piece of candy?
Yeah.
His SSA asked him, "Hey, Eric, can you put a T-shirt on?"
Most days.
Both days, but he can't button, zip, tie, or snap. If you can't button, zip, tie, or snap by a certain age, no, you can't dress yourself. But because the SSA asked him, "Eric, can you put on a T-shirt?" And he said, "Yes." She put down, "Yes, dress himself." So you have to
So you
watch
have to be
how
very, very
things are worded.
specific of the details. So once you get in, what do these waivers offer? So we've got charts, and they'll show you charts of all of these billing codes. The biggest one is something called homemaker personal care. That's someone that's at least 18, not a felon, has so many hours worth of training, has CPR first aid. That is either certified by the state of Ohio, like Dave said, as an independent provider, or works for an agency. It can be you, if you're not a felon and know how to do all of this training. And a homemaker personal care provider can be someone to come in and do the dishes, or teach you how to do the dishes. Give you a shower, or teach you how to take a shower, or take you out into the community so that everyone, regardless of disability, needs to get away from their parents. I mean, it's just part of life. You need that break, and they need some opportunities to get out there.
Right.
And especially for young adults in that transition, sometimes it's gonna be another young adult.
Right.
I tell folks, we've got thousands of kids on North High Street at Ohio State,
You're right.
but they might be taking you to the same things they're doing.
But that's sometimes okay, they're still
But-
kids.
And so, so that's one of the neat things about the parent supervising things. You know what culturally and what you're able to work with, but you also want to know who that is.
Yeah.
We started our program because parents were picking agencies, and it might be a 16-year-old son. The plan says he's going to play basketball every Wednesday night, and the agency just sent me a 60-year-old woman.
Right.
Because she met all the qualifications, but she just, she's not gonna be playing basketball. So, homemaker personal care can do all sorts of things. You won't find any therapy in the waivers. There is some behavioral stuff. The problem is the rates are so low, no one will do them.
Well, that's what we run into with even with the Medicaid card. You get it, but it doesn't always mean that you're gonna get everything it offers. You gotta find somebody that accepts that rate, right?
And the way it works with, the federal government
that-
says what must be provided,
Yeah.
the state gets to decide how much it's paid.
Right.
So every Medicaid card has to cover physician visits, but Medicaid decides how much we're gonna pay the doctors.
And you're not allowed to mix private funding with federal funding.
Right, you can't supplement the rate.
So like if the provider says, "Yeah, I'll work for your son, but I want $10 more on the side," you're not allowed to do that. The
Yes.
provider will lose their certification if it's
That's
caught.
Medicaid fraud, yeah. So, but you'll hear, well, someone's going to horseback riding therapy and they've only got a waiver. That's because the horseback riding therapy is they're certified as a homemaker personal care provider.
Oh, okay.
So.
And they're willing to accept that rate when
Yes.
it gets reimbursed.
They have to accept the rate.
Yeah.
Pegasus horse farm, my son goes to Pegasus
Right.
horse farm. You got in trouble with that one.
Right, yeah. They're also with day service providers, so.
Yeah, they are.
People have figured out what lane is good.
But
So-
because it's $45 a lesson and the waiver only pays so much an hour, it won't cover his horseback riding
Right.
because it can't mix private funding with the federal funding to pay for the therapy.
Okay.
Right, but a day service is paid for by the day, and it doesn't matter if back then, it didn't matter if I was there for an hour, they got paid for a whole day. So,
But now it does,
It
because my
does.
son would probably, okay.
there are ways to navigate, call us, we'll help you navigate. It's perfectly above board. I helped write some of the definitions, and they're purposely broad, but that makes them kind of squishy.
He's looking at me because I always talk about the challenge we have in our system is sometimes when a rule is not very clear, it could end up benefiting somebody. But there are often times when it's not clear that it's open to interpretation, and we got all these 88 counties, and it's your interpretation of what that rule says, and you say no to somebody.
Right.
So I'm a person who likes to see it just black and white. Is it yes? Is it no? If you tell me no, why is it no? I got to understand why the answer is no. But he's looking at me because he knows sometimes these rules
You don't
I
like
just
the
go.
squishy rules.
Well, I know
I
how to
don't.
navigate.
I don't
it,
because
so
you don't know what to do.
And he likes it because they are squishy.
I do, like it.
So yeah, we have our disagreements on
I
it.
see,
there-
I get you.
There are some new services in the waivers that, as of last year, one of the biggest problems was getting places, transportation.
Yes.
5 years ago, most of the transportation was provided by county boards. They ran most of the day services, and they had their buses, because they had a school, a workshop. It was all there, and then the federal government said, nope.
Conflict of interest.
And everything had to be privatized. So all these brand new transportation companies started up, and the pandemic hit, and they had no one to transport and nowhere to go, and they went out of business because they bought and leased vehicles that no one was using. So we worked with the state to create a new service under all three waivers called self-directed transportation. That can be a couple different things. It can be, I got a job at Burger King and it's an afternoon shift. I can have a contract with my neighbor, and my neighbor can get paid through my waiver, as long as they're not a criminal, to do this. Or the county can authorize gift cards to Uber or Lyft, or the city bus system. And a lot of people have like, I don't want my kid going in an Uber car. Your homemaker personal care provider can go with them in the Uber or on the city bus. So it can pay for any public transportation. So if we ever get this train, it would pay for that. It can pay for buses, it can pay for Uber, Lyft, or it can pay for the neighbor or even a family member and reimburse them. There are always caps on everything, but so Becky is certified as a transportation provider.
Yep.
There are two different kinds. She can be
Like
transportation to just about anywhere, or non-medical, which is to work and
Workshop, day half,
educational
bus
environment.
stop.
So the guy that we helped,
Yeah.
who's now a teacher, lived on the west side of Columbus, and he was going to school on the east side for a while. He was able to use non-medical transportation.
There's 6 things for that,
Yeah,
and anything else is mileage.
right. They're just, because there's those vans and buses that senior citizens get on. If I've gotta go to my job in Burger King, they're never gonna pick me up on time.
Right,
And
which
I'm
is what-
still gonna be sitting, so having a one-on-one Uber driver is gonna do that for me. And I can use my waiver to pay for it rather than spend all of my income at Burger King.
Okay.
Yeah, there's just so
And
many.
they exactly had that same conversation in Pickerington, because there were individuals that were employed and needed transportation. They were using the public transit
Yeah,
and were not getting, then they were getting there late to their job.
oh yeah,
Which is not their
they're
fault.
awful, yeah.
Right, so
But
then,
well, if they have a waiver, the waiver will pay for
but
it.
I can tell you that there were probably, how many DD staff were at Pickerington? 10?
5 or 6. There were 5 or 6, because there were 3 of us.
Okay, I was thinking there were more. Oh, the one
The
one
secret
lady
one.
was both.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, but nobody mentioned that.
Well, you have to have a
could do that.
waiver to be able to access it.
But
but-
they did, those ladies.
Yeah, they did. Those ladies did.
Like, I find
Well,
more
it's-
and more that they
it's what
don't
she
know,
said.
or they passively don't know, so that you don't push that pedal.
We're finding out that often they just don't know.
Is that in the IO or just the self and level
It's in
one?
all three waivers
Is it
now,
now?
self-directed transportation. It's, So what the state did was they have a company called GT Independence, which is a third-party financial management service. So in your ISP meeting, you say, yeah, I need to get to my job at Burger King, and I need X amount of hours, or I need X amount of Uber gift cards. Well, Uber is not a waiver provider. So what GT Independence does is the county sends a message to GT Independence saying, buy David $100 worth of Uber gift cards, and you'll get the gift cards through this third party. And they're not paid for by your waiver, the state has a contract with them to pay bills. There's also a service we're going to
I
gradually.
think you better clear that up, I think I saw the confusion. The gift cards are paid through the waiver.
The
GT Independence
GT
is not,
Independence
it
is
doesn't
not.
come out of your waiver.
Right,
Okay.
it's in all three waivers. There is a service category in the self and the level one called participant directed goods and services that will eventually be in the IO. Government figured out years ago that if I buy an exercise ball from a school supply company, it's gonna be $200. If I go to Walmart, I can get it for $50. So participant directed goods and services says, I can use my waiver to pay for goods and services available to the general community. And you know, Walmart's not certified, but GT Independence can pay the $50 for the exercise ball, and government paid saved $150.
Yeah.
But the other thing we like is all of those boys with disabilities that forever have had to go to the disability summer camp, but they really wanted to go to the Boy Scout camp with their brother. This service can be used to pay for the Boy Scout camp. Well, then you have to trust the Boy Scouts to do what they're gonna do. So if I'm using a disability-specific program, they've gotta be certified by the state and accept a state rate.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I've got so many questions. I'm gonna
Yeah,
go-
no,
Let's go with the disability camps.
Right.
Because this is a flag that was picked up by
Right.
David Gould, it was not John Picard. So, there is no way, no shape, no how, that they pay for things that are not all inclusive.
If county funds are being used, counties get to make the rules.
Okay, but it's by county by county,
Right.
because one,
So-
John didn't do it, and two, there are other counties that are not making that
Right,
same
yeah,
protocol.
yes.
So whereas we would have camps that were, like, let's say for medically fragile, or like Recreation Unlimited has it all by class.
Yeah.
And recreation unlimited.
Then they
is
would all be
waiver.
turned down because it is
Right, so-
specialized.
Yes, but they're certified as a waiver provider. So you could use your waiver to go to the Recreation Unlimited camp. But there's a camp in Akron that people love called the Rotary Camp. It's disability specific, but they're not certified. Therefore, you can't use your waiver to go to Rotary Camp.
Okay.
So the rule is, and it's one of those fuzzy unwritten things, if I'm a business and most of my customers have a disability, you have to go through all the paperwork and be certified by the state of Ohio. If most of my customers, like Uber and Walmart, do not have disabilities, have at it. Choose the usual and customary rate. Don't charge me anymore because I have a disability, but I don't have to be certified. So it's expanded, like, so we have a friend that's in Toledo who wanted to go to a conference in Washington DC. And her waiver paid for her registration at the conference. And GT Independence was able to pay for her, because it helped her be more included in society. The level one, I can't remember if the IO has it now, where if a parent believes that attending a conference on autism is gonna benefit the family and support the child with autism, then it won't pay for the travel, it won't pay for the hotel accommodations, but it will pay for the registration. Yeah.
I didn't do that either.
But you have to have, they're not gonna tell you all this.
No, they don't,
Until
no.
you're in the door.
Yeah,
And so you probably, Have you, we listed all the waivers and all the service codes.
Yes, that was, I think, the comparison chart that I
Right,
was.
and it's got the budget at the top. We put home care waiver on here because a lot of parents who have kids with physical challenges are knocking on the county board door and they're
The IO
really,
does not have that.
the IO doesn't have it for the parents.
You're talking
It's
about
covered.
participant family stability.
Yeah, the family stability, to stabilize the family. I always say, follow the money. If there's any way that it keeps you out of an institutional setting, which costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, there's probably a way that the waiver has figured out. Because the primary reason, remember, going back to Ronald Reagan, was to keep those kids out of institutions. It's a waiver of an institution, and, yeah.
You said the budget was on here.
It's at the top.
Okay, since I have so many people online watching, could you explain that that budget is not going to go up in July?
Right.
We talked about that the other night.
So we got, I would think a successful year with the state legislature. And the legislature approved a 38.9, is it 38.9?
38.2, I thought.
38 something
Is it?
percent increase in funding.
30.08.
To, for
Right,
the
and then it's
rates of the
30,
provider.
then it's 7.2.
And the state raised the funding ranges on the budgets in
Right.
January. We don't believe they'll be raised again in July. They just did it all at once. The raise we got for our direct support staff, they got a 30% in January, and they're gonna get the rest July 1st. But we don't think, I've not heard
So
anyone.
you think they raised the whole amount at 38%
They just
in
raised it up,
January?
yeah. So they don't
Okay.
have to go back and do
So
it
they
again.
don't have to do it again.
Because it's all part of a rules process, they didn't wanna have to go through that whole.
So it actually should cover all the waivers?
Yes, it should.
Okay, that was our concern.
Yeah, the funding ranges on the IO waiver went up, and the annual budgets for the
Level one
level
and
one
south.
and the self went up. So you all are under, or over 18, but at the top on the level one and the self, if you're a child, you receive less annual funding because the assumption is you're in school.
Right.
An adult on the level one and self waiver is you're out of school. So if I'm 19 and I'm still in school, I'm considered a child. If I'm out of school at 17, I'm an adult. Yeah, and even a lot of our SSAs, our case management, are confused by that. Because when I'm a child and when I'm an adult. So for purposes of the budget, it's whether I'm in school or not. For the purposes of being an adult in the legal sense, I'm an adult at 18, even if I'm still in school.
And that doesn't matter whether it's homeschooling or public schooling or anything, as long
Yeah,
as
if I'm
it's,
still in school. If
Okay.
someone else is paying the freight, you're a kid. It really amounts to that. And waivers cannot pay for education in that sense. So if I'm in college, it can't pay tuition. If I'm in public school, it can't pay for that. If I'm in school as a child, it can't pay for transportation to get to school. But if I'm an adult in college, it can pay for transportation to get me to college, because college is considered I'm learning skills to get a job, to become a taxpayer.
okay, this was a discussion I had with Stark County last week at Sharing
Okay.
Solutions. They said, how many miles DODD transported a child to school? And I asked him about that, he said, well, that's because the school was refusing to transport.
The county can use local dollars, but they
And that's
can't
what they
use
did.
a waiver.
Okay,
Yeah,
That's
the
what I was
county
doing.
can make the rules, and we've got some counties like Stark and Cuyahoga and Franklin sometime who have enough funds that they'll go
They'll just
above and
take
beyond.
care of it, yeah.
Yeah, we'll just.
Okay. I was confused over there.
I don't know, I love the superintendent in Stark County. If, you know, even if there's a hearing, you know him, even if there's a hearing or something, he will email me or call me and say, Gary, you know we're gonna take care of it. And I know that's true. He'll do what needs to be done. He's just this good guy. He's been all through, he's been a developmental center superintendent. He's worked in various county boards, and he's just, and honestly, most of the superintendents are just good people. You don't get into this field ever for, I would say all of them are. People are just, there's not a superintendent who wouldn't answer the calls. We did have one years ago. There was one years ago, the nineties, actually, where a parent called me and I called him. I said, you just need to call her. And he said, you know, if I call her, I'll never get anything done all I do is talk to parents.
That's sometimes the thing.
I was like, my God, I can't believe you told me that. He's not here anymore. And actually it was his third county that he was in, so you can imagine. I always forget that I'm being filmed.
I have an
That's all
on-
right.
I have an online question, but I think it's a OJFS
That's all right.
question. Are prepaid funeral arrangements counted as an asset if it's paid directly to the funeral home?
Depends depends on how if the funeral home then owns that asset, no, it's not counted.
Okay.
It's called an irrevocable burial fund. That my mother had. My mother was on the passport waiver before she died, and I signed over all her policies and all of to the funeral home, and then it didn't count, and she became eligible for Medicaid.
Well, I know for Eric, he had a burial plot, and I had to give a copy of that to OJFS. And it's like he could own a house, he could own a car, and he owns a burial plot, and they're not supposed to count against him. But I guess she said that Social Security was giving her a hassle.
Most funeral directors know how to write it up. They're used to doing that. I would talk to the funeral home. Because if it's irrevocable, like I can't ever get
She
it
said yes,
back.
it's irrevocable.
Yeah, then it doesn't count. What you find is a lot of the people that you deal with at Job and Family Services especially don't know. So again, Ohio is different. Everyone, almost every other state, if you go to the Medicaid office, which is Job and Family Services, they work for the state. Our Job and Family Services officers work for the county commissioners. We have some rural counties who really, their software is so ancient, they don't speak well to the Department of Medicaid on a state level. So they don't always know, call us, Medicaid will call them. She does, even on a DD level, if you're hearing something that's not right, call us, they will get a well-placed phone call from the state. It just is, we've been around for a long time, we know people.
Well, like,
Even if there's in school, I've got the cell phone numbers of every cabinet member in Human Services.
because I guess I attempted to do this directly, and I still felt like I wasn't getting answers. And that's why then I went to the Ohio department.
The DODD?
Yes, and one, it's not easy to get names, emails, or phone numbers,
That is true.
because they're all hidden, even here at the county level. It used to be it was a list, just like your schools have a listserv, and you could go and find it, and, yep, that's his teacher for math, and I can send an email. They no longer have that. It's under the guise that they won't get hacked, right?
Right.
Well,
So-
I will, as a former network person in this IT side, I will agree that you don't typically want to publish those on a public-facing website. It does lead to challenges, I will
Right.
agree with that. But there should be a process in place that I could easily get to who I need to get to find that
Call
out.
us and we'll be the intermediary.
Right.
Yeah.
But I agree.
But even
There
at
are
the
times-
state level,
Yeah.
like, you can find them, but like you have to have your cursor over it, and it brings you up a whole list, but you can't copy that list, you can't print that list. You have to know, just pick one person or it's gone. I took a screenshot or a picture of it with my cell phone while it was up on my desktop so that I would have those. But even when calling them, there was then a call placed to the county, but then that person fell off the face of the earth. Like, once the county and the state talked amongst themselves, it was like, well, it's again for Amy to deal with the county directly. And so then you just start to be like, all right, well, I'm just gonna keep trying, and I don't know who to call, and, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly had my challenges calling the 800 number support, and then you get feel like you get, well, today you gave me a different answer than I got yesterday from someone else.
Yes.
I'm very frustrated, what is the real answer?
So as we grow, and I'm hoping this grows as a group, we'll bring the director of the department in.
Yeah.
We're acknowledging that you had challenge with the food, opportunities for, the director of opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities has a son with autism. And
Right.
he comes, when we bring him in, Kevin talk like a dad, don't talk like a cabinet member. And
Yes, I would love for him to come talk to us, because I'm just gonna tell you, and I would share my nightmare
Right.
stories with him, but because I don't understand that program, and it wasn't
Right.
beneficial to my son, but I also felt like it was a waste of taxpayer dollars, because I had
Right.
I would assume they would call, job coach, employment specialist for OOD. Then
right,
you would have the employment specialist for Fairfield County, and the Fairfield County one literally never spoke. She was a mirror image of this OOD person, but never really brought anything to the table.
so it's a ways, Becky's coming, but our spring conference is gonna be in Cincinnati.
I saw that, but I can't come.
And
It's the
it's-
one he's getting ready for graduation.
Right.
Does the
And
Ohio
I think that's what
DFP,
she emailed you about,
Yes,
but you're
yeah.
having another one in July.
Yeah, but it's very seldom that we get three department heads together, but, you know, so, yeah, we're hosting one in July. The one we host in July every year is at the Hollywood Casino in Columbus. And we do that because they take they have been very, they
break
take
time, there's lunch
$10,000 off our bill.
Yeah, they're very,
Wow.
Because we've
Yeah.
got 250 moms and dads walking through their slots. You get that?
Yeah.
You know, but they take $10,000 off our bill, so,
he's back there going, yeah.
you know, it's,
and Gary doesn't leave till midnight.
Yeah, he's like, sweet.
it is. In fact, David's got a grant recently, so do you still have money in your grant?
I do have a little bit, yes, from the state, so we have grant.
But it has to be
money
spent by June,
available
right?
To provide scholarships for people with disabilities and family members to attend conferences.
But we have to use it before June
We have to
30th.
use
We
it,
have to
yes.
encumber it before
Yes.
June 30th, so.
I've got to use 3 of them, thank you.
Well, no,
We have
our
quite a
spring one
few
is
people
$10,
across the
so
state.
because we had an insurance company. We're conception to resurrection, everything in between, and the Department of Medicaid had all of these managed care companies calling us, and we had one that we were not real happy with, and I told them, and they said, can we please sponsor something? And they're sponsoring the spring conference, so it's $10 to come. But you get to my age and where I grew up most of my life talking to people who don't talk, so there's no filter.
There's no filter.
If I think you're shitty, I'm gonna tell you. Yeah, and mess with a kid with a disability, you're gonna, you can need to deal with the rest of your life, so, yeah, I'm sorry. And again, I'm on Facebook Live, so.
And you're not in my church.
I'm not, yes,
Oh, my goodness.
yes. I was in a large mega church Saturday. He backed up because the lightning bolts were about ready to fly through. Sanctuary
We were
ceiling.
up front and he kept cursing and I was like, I'm just gonna scoot.
This is a very large evangelical church.
Yeah, I was
and-
like,
yeah, well, Becky's Baptist, I kind
Yeah.
of like.
Yeah.
You just
It's all,
forget
I
sometimes.
think, yeah, I mean.
I grew up a good Methodist, but, So,
We're all over.
for SSI, are you all getting at least $900 and some a month? Okay. The reason you're not,
Okay, so tell me,
We are.
again, there's so much I need to learn, it's like I don't even know if I can learn it all.
Okay.
Here's what I've been told.
Yes.
You're supposed to have, like, SSI is supposed to pay for food, clothing, shelter, right?
Yes.
You also don't wanna have more than 2,000, you're not supposed to save it, that's not what it's meant for, it's needs,
Right.
right? So we go through it, like.
Right.
He knows how to spend money, and he breaks stuff, and it's his. So we go through it, but then they said you have to charge rent.
Yes.
I did put on my form that I was charging rent, but then somebody else, and I don't know if this is true, to claim it as rent, it should be another
So if.
facility, like another house.
No.
No.
And I'm like, I can't do
You have
that,
to-
and then I'm
You
supposed to
have
have a
to
rental.
think that you're
I have
a
to have a rental agreement.
1930
If he's not,
boarding house.
if he's
Yeah.
related to you, you do not have to have a rental agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, but.
The
but it
ARC
helps-
requires it,
Yeah.
if you work through the ARC, and some of the agencies require it. But if it's just between you and your child and you're the provider, you do not have to have a rental
But
agreement.
then the other thing
If
that
he's
Social
related to
Security
you.
said is that you could take your household
Alright.
of 4.
You can't.
Take your
That's what we
total,
did.
He's not your roommate, he's your boarder.
right, but
Yeah.
they were
So we-
saying to take it and just divide it like your total.
You can't.
Bills into a 4.
That's what we
Yeah,
did.
Social
That's what they
Security
tell
allows
is
you to do
walk
that.
in the door with a room and board contract, this is his lease, and we're charging him $700 a month. The rule for
The
social
bad thing
security.
is that you have to claim that as
No,
income.
the rule for social security is.
You're supposed to claim that as income
Guess
if you
what?
have a rental agreement.
Yeah, you're paying.
No, I think that's what they're trying to tell you, is they're trying to tell you, figure out what the
Actual
actual costs are.
He's an adult.
Yeah.
He'd be paying.
So if he's using the phone, I'm just throwing things out there. That's what they're trying to get people to think of,
Internet.
Well,
break that down.
Social Security
I didn't
has
know
a
that.
right to
Yeah, we
reduce
did do
the
a rental
payment by
agreement. We just-
1/3.
We just
If
third
you
it.
don't have.
And we get the
that's
full
where
nine.
it's-
But see, I did put it in there and they just disregarded
If it's not in writing, it
Price of
didn't
the
happen
furniture.
in this system.
it. Okay.
So,
until-
and
You,
and
me,
you
and
know,
let's do this.
I know you.
Yeah, we
it's gonna be
split all
like-
that and that
And,
gets
and don't worry
Get,
about
get
you being
Sarah
the
one, put
guardian.
it in her folder.
We don't claim
Yeah.
it as tax.
No,
You're-
that's what I'm saying.
it's-
You can pay the taxes on the
It
rent.
doesn't.
Oh,
it's just-
yeah,
it's
we
just
don't-
a
we
room
didn't
and
do
kitchen
that
privilege,
because
you
we
know?
don't want to
Yeah.
claim it.
But yeah, sex alone, yeah, it's like hollow legs there.
Right, and then I've never known the IRS
I'm
to
trying to take
like
away
mess.
myself,
It's
because
like,
it sounds a little loud.
when I was working and living at home, I was paying part, my parents' house was paid for, and it was only a $10,000 home.
Right.
But, you know, I was paying my way and I was helping out.
She pays
And
rent. She
it's
pays.
just because, and keep in mind, if he wasn't living there in 1967, he'd be in a state facility.
Right, correct.
And this is less expensive, more
Right.
inclusive, more normal, and it's life. At 18, you no longer have a legal responsibility. So the words natural support will come
Goes
up.
away at 18.
Well, unless you say it goes away, they will keep saying
Oh, yeah.
natural support.
Yep.
The guilt,
Okay.
the guilt never
So
goes
me trying to
away.
be nice was part of that. I spent the system.
Yeah, there you go.
And no one is gonna come and take your kid.
Right, okay.
You know, that threat, and
Well, they
where-
can take him, they bring him back, I'm
No
sure.
one's gonna kidnap you, Gary, they'll bring you back the next day.
There's a couple things they'll ask you with Social Security too, and it's really hard to comprehend, and they'll ask you, when you say, well, my kid's paying rent, is he a part of your household? And you have to say no. Once the child starts paying rent, their little room is kind of like a college dorm.
Yep.
Okay, if they were in a quad, they would have shares of the living space, the kitchen, the bathrooms, all that stuff, but they're actually just paying rent on that
It's-
room.
He's
So
a
if you think
household
of
of
it-
one.
So he is a
Yeah.
household of one, he is not a part of your household. And you have to tell them that, if you say yes, he is, they will take a 1/3 reduction. Now, if she moves into your house, you have to say yes, you would charge her the same amount. If a stranger moves into your house, you have to say yes, you would charge them.
You're 1934 in house.
Okay.
I'm just
so
saying,
You're
those are
always
the
together,
trick
but-
Let me
questions.
ask you this question, because this came up with Medicaid, not with Social Security. They kept asking me if he filed taxes on his own, and he just turned 18, because that was gonna play into it, and I was
There are
like,
different rules for food stamps.
but this was
So-
only Medicaid.
Well, but Medicaid, yeah, but they're all kind of
They're all-
interconnected.
They all have their own rules and they don't talk to each other.
Anyone else in the world, when you apply for Medicaid, you don't have to go to the Social Security office. It's a done deal. In Ohio, we have our JFS office and the Social Security office. It's just an Ohio thing. We passed a law a number of years ago that they
Don't you
would
feel like
merge.
we'd be better if it was just, do you think it's better if it's all state? Because I do see that where there's others that have state and they don't understand. this whole county state thing?
It depends. I've been the executive, I was a local exec in Pennsylvania, and the state exec in Alabama, state exec in California. Because of our levies, we have more money per person to spend than anywhere else I've ever been. But we have 88 ways of spending.
Which is coming out.
And we've got hundreds of school districts and lots of educational service centers and lots of councils of government. We pay a lot of administrative fees in Ohio. But if we were able to get it all together, but it would take a constitutional convention.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure it's worth it. Understand when county boards were created, they became county boards in 1967, but they started in the 50s, where parents, part of our organization, created schools for kids with disabilities because our kids were not allowed to go to public school. And those children grew up, and by the 1960s needed adult services, and parents took the model they had for schools, which was our unconstitutional public school funding, and created county boards. The difference is kids with disabilities have a constitutional right to a free and appropriate public education, but no one has a right to adult services other than Medicaid and SSI. So we've got an unconstitutional funding formula that's layered onto our county boards. So but it evolved that way, you know, and it's not gonna change for a long time, if ever. I know the county boards, I would love to have state-funded waivers. But in our system, we bought into we use our local levies. And that means every county's a little different in what they can afford.
With the household of one, though, for SSI, does that play into how I should file taxes for him?
I claim him as a dependent. I pay more than 51% of his support.
So he's a household of one, but he's a dependent on your
And Social
Yeah.
Security doesn't really talk to the IRS,
Yeah.
unless they're looking to
That's what
see
we
if
Like
they
do.
when
work.
I called them to ask them questions about.
Oh, they don't know.
Well, they were like, we don't ask you for receipts.
No.
We don't.
Yeah.
That's what we
They
do.
were like, we
We
don't
to
care.
be claimed,
Yeah.
my daughter.
Right.
Literally,
The
they
daughter,
were.
I
Right.
feel
And I
he's
was freaked
to be
out
five.
because,
We're
like,
fine.
you know,
My
and all
daughter's
the forms are like
31, so-
burglary and-
Yeah.
Jail and.
Yeah.
But what they told us
And they
is,
don't care.
It would be vacation.
right, what they told us is, we're not gonna ask for them, but we reserve the right to
Right,
ask for them.
that's what she said. Like,
So-
if somebody called us and said, you're taking his money and going to
No,
Hollywood
so-
Casino.
He's not doing that.
Keep it in a checkbook.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
gonna
we
be
do,
fine.
we do.
Just make sure that you keep it in
He
a
wants to
separate
see it.
account.
Correct, so
That's
yes.
what we do.
Well, wait,
Yeah.
that's a problem though.
And
I
it
can just
wasn't
tell you,
receipts there.
because when I went to set up a payee account, that's what they kept telling me to do. Even Social Security told me, but then Lynn, who's coming next month, she told me the same thing. One, the institutions don't understand what a payee account is.
That Park National does, that's one of the banks that we.
Well,
found
I
is really
got
their
Fairfield
debit
Federal on board. Fairfield Federal then said that they
And then-
did have it.
Wow.
I called twice before I went in, and I said, I need to set up a payee account, and I need a debit card, right? Because
Right.
we're,
And you can't
this
get a
is the
debit
time
card.
we live in
Right,
where you
right,
need a debit
yeah.
card. They wanna give me a debit card.
Okay,
right?
this is what
Wait.
you do.
So, no, I got it fixed, but I had to go to the head of Park National Bank, who then talked to the head of Fairfield Federal Bank, who said, oh, our stuff is archaic and we didn't know, and yes, you can have
Yeah.
one. It's a risk,
This is what I mean
Risk
about our
prevention thing.
system.
That's why I
Drives
get
me-
it's a risk prevention,
Most-
thing, and I
most
get
of
that.
the banks,
But I'm
if
like,
you
I'm
have a
not gonna
payee-
hand it to him,
Right.
one. And two, even if I did hand it to him,
He'd be like,
he would not know what to
he'd
do
eat
with
it.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I'm like, you can still give it to me. So they've done it, and I've told other people that you go to get a
Right.
paid account, but most
There's a lot.
people end up getting joint accounts because
Yes.
they don't know
Well,
what
just
the
make sure
paid
your
accounts
money's
are.
not in it.
Well,
It can be
right.
joint, but.
Your money's not in it, but it also, isn't it safer for him if somebody were to sue me? Half of his money then is technically seen as mine. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, it
So it
does.
should be a
That-
payee account to
But-
protect him as well.
Right.
Yeah, but if half the money's yours, you then have that liability of, if something happens to him, it's all your money. But that, I know from personal experience with my mom, we had a joint savings account. And the bank said, your mom passes, it's all yours, and you just inherited half of, well,
It gets messy.
it gets messy.
I think the page
Just-
account's the way to go, but
Right.
most people can't find banks that
Yeah.
say, I understand what that is, one, and two, then set it up appropriately like you asked them to.
Well,
And I literally called twice, they said, oh, you can come in and anybody knows how to do it. Well, that wasn't the case, I walked in, I went through the whole
they don't know.
gamut, and then the guy sets it up, says, we can't give you the debit card.
Right. Yes.
He called me after I left, we can't give you the debit card.
Right.
And I was like, so I spent an hour there, and I called twice, I got it fixed, but I'm just telling you, there's a lot, I know it's a nuance that they don't always deal with, but I really wish that they would, and that's where, like, this whole coordination of services,
Right.
I don't see
Doesn't
DD
work.
doing that. I see parents like Ann and I going out and telling people, hey, this is what they told me, and now you're telling me this, and then somehow you get it fixed, but DD doesn't do that.
No. So,
Yet they're supposed to be the doors.
They're supposed to be,
knocked on.
right, though?
Yes.
yeah. So are any of your kids gonna be working?
No.
Okay. There's something called Medicaid buy-in that we got in Ohio law.
Patient liability.
Hey, yeah, well, no, this is different. This
Is
is
it?
about 15 years ago. People were saying, well, I can't get a job because if I get a job, I'll lose my Medicaid. This prevents you from losing your Medicaid. You can make into the tens of thousands of dollars and still be eligible for Medicaid by just simply, it's for 16 and up that are working and on Medicaid. Now, you may lose your SSI because you got an income, but your Medicaid, you won't lose your health insurance. It's supposed to be an automatic, but because of our JFS system, it's not. So when you reach a certain threshold, like, so you're bringing in 50,000 a year, that school teacher is bringing in a lot of, and he's got public health insurance through the school system. Medicaid is the best insurance you can ever get. So he can't lose Medicaid because he needs his waiver. So at a certain amount, and it's kind of fuzzy too, he'll start paying a premium to Medicaid to stay on Medicaid. And that it's sort of like a patient liability Medicaid, or Becky brought up, but it's a Medicaid premium, so he never loses his Medicaid, and then he keeps his waiver, and he's competitively employed as a school teacher, all at the same time. Now, he doesn't qualify for Social Security anymore, not even disability, when his parents retire, because he's working.
Right.
But, so there are all sorts of legal ways, and I know I'm going off from waivers, but
No, that's
for those of you who have Medicaid though, who don't have a waiver yet, there's a lot of stuff you can get just with a Medicaid card. So
Talk to
the-
me about that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so your son qualifies for something called home health care, where, do you guys help him shower and get up?
So, we do have to supervise.
Yes, you
Okay,
are.
so the developmental disability waivers are based on the developmental disability models, and everyone learns, we all learn differently, and our waivers teach skills. Medicaid's a health insurance plan, and they don't teach skills, they do. That nurse who gives you a sponge bath isn't teaching you how to take a bath. They're just, so your doctor can prescribe up to 14 hours a week of home health care for activities of daily living. With a prescription. This is for everyone on Medicaid. And you take that, it's home health, 14 hours, you can get more than 14 with a prior authorization.
Yeah.
But that's typically for people that are too fed on respiratory, they've got a lot of physical challenge. 14 hours a week. It was designed for the older lady who fell down and broke her hip and someone needed to come in and give her a shower.
Right.
It's the same service.
Or to get her to bed, or whatever.
Right. But it's in 2-hour increments. So typically it's 2 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you get a prescription from your doctor, home health care services for activities of daily living, and you call around to home health care agencies to see if they'll fill your prescription. And do they take your Medicaid? And they'll say, tell me about your son. Well, he's got autism. We don't know anything about autism. well, I happen to know someone who would be really good. So if they hired you, they get the administrative fee and you get the check for helping do activities of daily living, which is getting up, getting dressed, eating, whatever. A lot of younger parents will use it to, I've got a kid with autism, but I got 2 other kids that are typical. I need to get the 2 other kids ready for school. You come in 2 hours in the morning, get my kid with autism who's on Medicaid ready for school while I do this. You're supposed to be in the house, but it gives you a break.
Right.
That-
Gives you an extra set of hands.
It
Oh my
does,
God.
and especially for guys, I
Sooner.
don't know my mom supervising me. Whether I can verbalize that or not, that it's, you know, and they can also do like housekeeping. We had one parent say, can they cut my grass? No, that's not like housekeeping. But it can be, like if I'm a senior living fairly independently, it can be someone to come in and fix my meal for me. You know, I got a home delivered meal, Meals on Wheels came, but I'm at a point where I can't figure out the microwave. You know, but it's home health care for activities of daily living. But your Medicaid card then also, it's, the age cutoff for behavioral therapy is kind of, I think it's in early 20s now that Medicaid will pay for it, but try to find an ABA, a BCBA that'll accept Medicaid. But it covers behavioral therapy through the Medicaid card.
Okay, wait, now we're gonna spend some time here, I'm sorry. So if I can find a BCBA that will accept Medicaid payment,
And your Medicaid payment, because it's a different managed care company.
right, then he could still get behavioral therapy.
Yeah, there's an age cutoff, but I don't think 18 is near it, I think it's higher. They did some study on, you know, its effectiveness as you get older and.
Right.
Which one do you have? Do you have Buckeye? or-
Well, so that's the thing, I signed up, I went around and around and around with state and county, I finally called head of JFS. He said, I got somebody to contact you, I got somebody to contact me that finally understood, yes, SSI qualifies them. I'm gonna
Right.
send you a paper application, cause I was doing the stuff on this
Right.
website. I got the paper application, I sent it back in, I got a very lengthy packet to complete, remember? And I got it done, because I got it on Friday. By the weekend, I got it done. It didn't fit back in the envelope that they gave to me, but I was gonna mail it that Monday morning. And it asked for household stuff, and I didn't know what to put, so I put both. I put all of
Right.
our stuff and just him,
They can't get
myself.
to the next page on their computer screen without putting all the others.
Right, so I did it both ways for all of us, and then I was about to put it in the mail Monday morning, and she said that was errantly generated, don't complete it, you don't need it.
They do that a lot.
Oh my
So I
gosh.
didn't do anything with it, I just put it away, and then they sent me Anthem, so I never elected.
The Department of Medicaid has a pretty good comparison chart of all the managed care companies and
So
what
what
they
I,
offer.
so then here's what I did, so then I contacted my doctor, I contacted my dentist, I contacted his eye doctor, because once I find people that work with my son,
Uh-huh.
I don't wanna change them.
Right.
Do you have a waiver yet?
No.
No.
Okay, when you get your waiver, you can call Medicaid and say, I have a waiver, I want straight Medicaid.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you won't have to jump through the hoops of, do you take this, or this?
It's
So
they
the
take
reason
She
any-
people
automatically
don't
got straight
is
Medicaid,
because
they sent me Anthem, which is a
if you
managed
don't
care.
choose, they choose one for you.
They just pick it?
Yes.
But how,
They never
So
gave me a
what's the
choice, so they
Yeah,
just
they
gave
just
it.
where
did.
was I supposed to choose, was it the package she told me to ignore?
Well, you can change
Sounds
every
like it.
year, but the
Okay.
reason parents don't change is because my doctor doesn't take straight Medicaid.
Right. So
If they
my
take any
doctor-
of the plans, they have to take straight Medicaid. If they take any plans, they
Yes,
have to
Dr.
take
Levi
straight,
takes straight Medicaid or
Okay,
CareSource, so if it
okay.
comes to a
because,
managed one, it's
because
straight
that's
or
how Medicaid
CareSource.
works.
But then my
Okay.
dentist and my eye doctor won't take Medicaid at all.
Right,
Which
yeah,
means now I gotta find different providers.
right,
Even though they said he could stay with them because.
right, yeah, but private pay then becomes. And you know, that you can keep
You
your
can have
private
dual,
health,
you can have private
but if you
insurance
keep your
too,
private
when
health,
you're
it pays
at
first,
work.
and then Medicaid pays second.
You can have
And when
private
you
insurance
retire,
too,
he's
you
gonna
work.
qualify
Yeah.
for Medicare.
Yeah.
Because you qualify for Medicare.
Shut up, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's an it's disability or age required. So Eric is now on,
He's only on straight Medicaid because, he's on straight Medicaid because his dad passed away. If his
Right.
dad had not passed away, he would have continued with his private insurance and Medicaid
Yeah.
and Medicare.
right.
You had all three.
Yes,
would have,
which-
yeah.
But it's not,
It's not always-
it's not always roses.
Yeah, 'cause
Three
then you're
companies
fine.
deciding who.
Okay.
Oh, I guess, yeah, that
Yes.
would be.
For
But-
some-
Yes,
okay.
and if you're
Let
on
me
all
say, for
three,
somebody that's medically fragile, that's a good idea, all three. For somebody like Eric that's not medically fragile, I'm finding out that
but
my
pri-
husband probably wasted his money paying for Anthem all those years, which was our private insurance, because he never need them medical.
Right.
Right.
And Medicaid picks up
But private
everything.
pays first, Medicare pays second, Medicaid pays third.
Wait,
So-
so wait, he doesn't have to come off at 26, he can stay
No.
on?
Correct.
Really?
Because he's just
Stay
able.
on, yeah.
With
But
99% of it.
measure whether you wanna be paying a premium, because Medicaid pays, if you can
Medicaid
find a
pays
doctor,
everything.
every hospital takes
everything, so then
Medicaid,
you
every
have-
pharmacy, there's no co-pays, no
Well, but,
deductibles.
but
And our-
I don't wanna find a new,
Right.
especially the dentist.
For now,
Yeah.
anyway.
The eye doctor, I don't really worry so much about because I can always get these
Right.
from a private
Right.
online thing.
And things change all the time, so we
But
always
the
say,
dentist is a big deal, I don't know.
what we say today is accurate today.
Yeah.
It might not be tomorrow, but yeah, when you reach retirement age, or if you become disabled, he'll also be Medicare.
Well, and the premium, I don't think is that bad.
Do they automatically do
Florida.
that? Because we just signed up for
Yeah,
Medicare.
For Medic-
the federal government kind of.
And it would
works.
And they haven't changed her to, she's still on Medicaid.
See,
Well, she'll stay on
private
Medicaid, but
insurance,
she'll get
It didn't
Medicare
look
as
so
well.
crappy.
Okay,
And then
do I need to
Medicare pays
apply for
10%,
that?
So.
They'll notify you
It would-
sometime in the next
So
year.
who goes to?
Oh,
Okay, we
realize-
just took it, we just,
Huh?
we're
Yeah.
just that age
He's always
now.
gone to a
Yeah,
pediatric
no, as
dentist.
long as she's got Medicaid, she's fine.
He's
You'll just,
never been fun
it's
to
called
take to the
My
dentist.
Care Ohio,
Uh-huh,
where it's a combination of
okay with
Medicare
her.
and
But
Medicaid.
she knows.
Okay.
he
And
gets
everyone's
the
still
first
trying
one
to
in the
figure it
morning.
out, to be honest.
Okay.
It's jumping around
She's
a little.
ready,
It may
she
take
gets
'em a
in,
little
she
while.
gets out,
It may.
just like
and we do
everything.
it.
Yeah.
Like it-
You're right,
That's
so you
what we
don't
have,
want
so
to
she
change.
knows, so I don't know that I could ask for that from another dentist, one.
Gotcha.
And because she's pediatric, she technically shouldn't see him,
Right.
but he still has baby teeth. And
Oh, wow.
intellectually, he responds in a way that she can justify it to
Right.
keep him. So she's offered to keep him, and I was like, yes, but then the whole insurance thing came into play. And I was like, I don't know that I can pay her out of pocket if he gets past 26, but if you can stay on your insurance past 26, then.
Yeah, they can stay. My-
We
yeah.
also have a new
Ours was on
program in
still.
Ohio that's about a year old now. It's for children that have more psychiatric issues. So kids that would have been, when I was coming up, what's called the socially emotionally disturbed classroom. But it could also be someone with autism who has some mental health challenges, people with Down syndrome that have mental health challenges. It's a program called Ohio Rise. You can access it if you even have a DD waiver or a DD diagnosis, but you do also have mental health challenges. And it is through Aetna. It's another managed care company. It also has a waiver of its own. So most children don't qualify for Medicaid, especially kids in middle-income families. But Ohio Rise has a waiver of its own. So if you know children, the problem is children grow up, but then they're not gonna necessarily qualify, but
It's only a year and a half old. Ezra, Mackay, and Rain have Ohio Rise.
yeah.
Oh, that's why. because I
Right.
was further away.
So you can access additional, it's behavioral health, it's not what we think of, but, I'm on the Ohio Rise board on a state level, and it's through something called a CANS assessment that determines, your level of mental health challenges. But it's something that anyone can use if they're experiencing that, but it's primarily for children. The governor found out that many of our children, thousands in foster care, are in foster care because of mental health challenges. And if you can deal with that part, maybe they can keep the family together.
So I have an issue with Ohio Rise.
Yeah,
I've had that since I went to our board meeting and she talked all about Ohio Rise. It ends at age 21.
that's my big problem.
And there is no plan for after these, some of them are violent, after the age of 21, there's no, and that's my big problem with Ohio Rise. There's no plan for after age 21.
No, but I think the thinking was, we got the door open.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a one step at a time. And the same issue, that if I've got mental health challenges at 17, I'm gonna have them at 23 as well.
Well, mine's only 10, so, or 11, so I have a little while, but.
Yeah, but
Yeah, cause when he was in middle school, it was severe crisis intervention, and we had to go to children's, and children's came down to basically observe and teach, because at the time, there was not behavioral support
Right.
at the school, right? And so then when you said that, I was like, why didn't I get that?
it's only been around about a year
It
and a
wasn't
half.
around,
Yeah.
because,
Um,
of course, it didn't make sense.
In fact, the Department of Medicaid asked us if we would consider becoming an Ohio Rise provider, which we just did. But we don't have, it's just for respite care. They liked our family choice program, that they thought maybe we could work it in the Ohio Rise system, that instead of going into foster care, if I need a break from my kid, I know grandma would do it, but grandma needs a few bucks. And so the ARC, and they just don't have enough providers. So we got certified, and now we're kind of exploring.
Okay, so I would like more information on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I need
So
to
Becky's a
vote on that.
provider, did she have to go through the county to become a provider, or did she just go directly to you?
No, you don't go through the county at all.
So I don't need to do this checklist.
So do you work with a specific family that has a waiver?
She would be working.
I would be
Okay, but
her.
Once
He's
he
on
has a waiver, Boundless, I am Boundless, and
Yes.
Columbus does the same thing.
Yes.
You would name the agency as the provider, and then we have an agreement with you that you'll be her unpaid supervisor.
Right?
That's how,
Right.
it's really family chosen,
Right.
family
Yeah.
controlled. So you sign an agreement with the ARC that you will advertise, you'll bring us the people you want us to employ.
Okay.
And what we would do is, we would do your background check. We have a registered nurse who's a CPR first aid instructor who would do that.
And if she's busy, I do it.
Yeah, and Becky does it.
Or if you already have it.
I already
like
have
do,
it.
Or she
Yeah,
does.
well, yeah, and it depends on how long, and,
I take
there
my
is
skills test
online,
on Monday.
and we have online training that you do. Because of who we are, we have extra steps
Yeah,
that you have to
absolutely.
go through, and you have to demonstrate you can do some of the electronic stuff, because all the documentation, so instead of an IEP, you're an ISP.
ISP, yes.
And you develop the goals, and her job would be to document what she did
Yes.
on
Which I
those
would
goals.
trust her to document.
Yeah, and you do it electronically, and you pay every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. And it's nice. It's really nice because
Log in and you just log in and document, it's all based off how the ISP is written, so.
Correct.
Yeah.
if you were going to work for yourself, you have to wait till Medicaid pays you.
Correct.
The ARC pays you before they even get reimbursed. So you have your paycheck right on time.
So
Right.
So
The
I'm not
computer
then
system,
technically-
well, the computer system went down this week in Columbus.
I'm a direct service provider, but I'm not really an independent service provider.
Right.
A DSP and the IP, we're all the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Direct support.
Well, it
professional.
is, but yeah,
Right.
but what you were saying is that you get paid.
Right, right.
Yes.
And so
There,
what's,
so my question to you is, does the ARC have a BCBA on staff?
yes, but we don't use that because BCBA's are not certified within the waiver system.
Okay, but I am a registered behavioral technician,
Right.
but I need to be under,
Who are you talking about, the BCBA, Kara?
Kara is a
Okay.
BCBA,
I was
yeah.
like, wait a minute.
so I need to be supervised,
But
I need to be supervised for 10% of my time.
See, there's-
Yeah, see, we wouldn't have that ability because she'd be your supervisor.
Okay.
Yeah,
So then how do I get around that as a,
You can.
You wouldn't be,
You have to go down.
but
and
you wouldn't be
balance.
employed as a BCBA, you'd be employed as a homemaker personal care provider.
right,
So the other thing to keep in mind for you all is, there's a base rate for homemaker personal care. But there's an extra $3 and something an hour statewide if the child has what's called or adult has a behavior add-on,
I've already asked about
or
that.
what's called a complex care add-on, and there's a few bucks for medical add-on.
You gonna do
So-
longevity too, or not?
And there's a longevity, yeah, the longer you work, they're not agency, some agencies don't pass it along, we pass on 100% of it. But a behavior add-on is, your behavior is such that you need a written behavior plan. You know, it's not like,
Okay, can I tell you that, see, he has a behavior plan, and when I first asked DD to address the behavior plan, they looked at me as if I had lobsters coming out of my nose. Then they said, nobody has ever asked for a behavior plan to be put into their ISP. Why not?
that's,
yeah, that's what they
I
said,
don't know if that's true.
seriously.
Am I, so do you hear the words coming out of
Yeah,
your mouth?
I
Are
do,
you in
yeah.
disbelief, right?
Yes, I am on that one, yes.
right, no, it's part of, yeah.
Because then later I asked about how do I get the behavior add-on? Because we were talking about
There are
this whole acuity
questions on an
assessment.
assessment tool, there's always an assessment tool, but
But I don't think
fundamentally-
I've done the right assessment then. Because the
No,
only
you-
assessment I've done is the acuity.
You wouldn't, because they
Yeah,
don't
that's
do
what
that
they-
until after the waiver's offered. So they
Oh.
offer
But
you
see,
the
how do I,
waiver.
so I'm
The
gonna say,
first thing
I
you
want,
need to do is get a waiver.
Yes.
You need the needs
Yeah.
assessment.
I need the needs
It's
assessment
all
first.
procedural, and this is government, it's
But
all,
they don't-
you
they
don't
don't
do this
tell her
until you
this.
do
But
that.
they, yes,
They
they
don't
don't
tell
tell
her
you
this.
that,
But
because
even-
I think they want you to give
Even
up.
the acuity assessment is a snapshot in time. If you take it today and you don't get the waiver till July, they're gonna have to redo
Redo
it
it.
in July.
Okay.
Because everyone's a different person
Right.
tomorrow. And every time there's any change in me, whether I have more behaviors, I have less, so the behavior add-on is year to year.
Right.
What I hate is I've got, my staff person has an extra $3 and something an hour to deal with my behaviors, and I've got a really good behavior plan, and then next week I'm not exhibiting behaviors because I had a good behavior plan, I lose my behavior add-on. And I just, you know, but I
So
still
this
have that
circles back.
potential for my behaviors.
Circle
You know?
back to what we're advocating for as a whole system change is a valid instrument to
Right.
determine need
Right,
and one waiver, right, if you
Right.
think about it, because then I won't need these add-ons,
right.
right? If you're truly assessing me based on need, and we do a great job in Ohio talking about person-centeredness,
Right.
but we
So-
talk about choice, but the choice is really what is on this today, right? On
That's
this
what I
piece of
feel like,
paper.
that's what I feel like almost
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
We talk a lot about those things, but then you're trying to navigate a system that's really not necessarily
Conducive.
fully,
Right. So there's a
it's not like a
base,
full menu of
there's a
choices,
base
right?
rate for homemaker personal care. I have a master's degree in special ed supervision and 50 years of experience, and I would start at the base rate.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
As long as I'm not
Can I
a
tell you
felon,
that at a
and I
county?
know CPR first aid, and I can do the basic training, I'm in. But I don't get any credit for anything else that I've done in my life. And
So at the county level though, because, and I think this is stuck in their crawl, that because of the rate increase for direct service providers, they are now, well, hopefully they'll become more professional. I don't care if they're professional, if they can do the job I
Right,
need them
it
to do,
doesn't- yeah.
right? So like if I need them
Right.
to wipe this butt, how professional do I need them to be,
Exactly.
right?
Oh,
But-
we've had.
But, no, wait, so then,
Right.
now, because, you know, they're losing people, and it can't be because of their culture, it's because they're not getting paid enough. But then they say about their own staff, they don't understand their total compensation benefits, which is your PERS and your
Oh,
healthcare
yeah.
and all that stuff, which
They don't.
I understand that. So yeah, maybe they don't.
So,
But the administration does. And then the administration, while they're talking about levies, and then they're talking about direct service providers, can get paid $18 an hour, and they don't have to have a degree, but our ISCs have to have a 4-year degree, and they only make $22 an hour, and they negate that they're getting the overs, and they negate that they're
but if
getting.
I'm 23, I don't, We
Yes,
did,
but
we
they
did these
debate
trainings for
that
county boards.
to make it look like they're ISCs. It's all about the machine of DD needs to pay their people more, not pay the direct service
There's
provider.
a tremendous turnover among, so we do trainings for county boards as well. We did one early this year. And we were honestly bragging about our success in raising the rates.
Yeah.
We had a couple SSAs walk out of the room because independent providers in some cases are getting $30 an hour. No benefits, and they gotta pay their own taxes, but this county was paying their SSA $17 an hour. They had state benefits, but at 23, they had no commentate, they didn't grasp what.
Some counties, their SSAs are union. My county, they're union, and some counties, they're not union.
I don't believe ours is, but I don't know that for sure.
Most of them are not.
Most of us are
I
not.
don't think they are.
Yeah, they're
But
talking about.
Portage was
Just 'cause
like the
the
highest
local rules are-
compensated.
Yeah, oh yeah,
was
ours
the
are paid
highest
really
compensated.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so
guys.
They're now doing, salary assessment, and they're gonna be getting an increase in their pay, but I just, like, how long did it take to get the direct service providers increase in pay? And I would just want to,
It was hard, and we didn't get what we wanted.
I have a habit of moving.
You
out
do
with
that
it.
to me all the
Out of
time.
the lightning bolt.
But
shield.
what you.
well, but
Well,
they
I
patted
could
themselves,
tell you to turn it
OECD
off 'cause I
patted
have
themselves on the back for.
some
My
the-
phone's almost
the
dead,
dollar that they
so-
put in, or was it $2?
They put in $1 an hour.
At least you're not
Yes,
getting
but
hit
then the-
tonight.
Yeah, the legislation
Right.
did.
Yeah, the legislation was like, the governor wanted an average of 16,
Yeah.
and we got a little higher, and then the county boards threw in some extra.
Okay.
So it's an average of
I'm almost
18.
dead.
So some
Shut it
people will
down.
be getting
I'm gonna
less,
tell 'em
and
the
some will
questions I
be
have.
getting a lot
Oh, I
more.
thought you said it was almost dead.
My phone is almost dead.
Oh, okay.
My phone is almost dead. Too much GPSing today.
Go ahead.
I have lots of questions. but
No,
I'll
no, that's all right.
only ask a few. Are you allowed to refuse ED services
Yes.
and just get your waiver and?
Oh, no.
No, no, no.
No,
You have to have them involved. in
If,
the waiver.
yeah, so when you go through the needs assessment, the county has the authority to say, we'll pay for that with local dollars. Take it, and then prove that it's not enough.
Okay.
Maybe it is enough, and a lot of people, so we're working with families in some pretty affluent counties that the county is actually providing more than their waiver would have provided. You know, and they just kind of wanna wait and see. And we've got a family in one large county that the parents have 4 children with disabilities, and the county is providing like, and the kids are already on Medicaid because
I
it's a poor
think they're
family.
doing that so that it's not so that there's not that precedence of the entitlement where it's gonna
It
say
could
that-
be in some ways. I think this county kind of just wants to fill out what's going
where it's
on.
going.
Yeah, it's a really, we've
Which
got,
is probably why they're
So,
dragging their feet with all of us.
the vast majority
Like,
of counties
they're-
really
I
want to
have
do
a
the
lot
right
of thoughts
thing.
about.
So once
Yeah.
you get your
Whether
waiver
there's-
though, does DD have to say it's wrong, once you have your waiver?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
The waiver, the
Yeah.
county board's responsible to assure health and safety. for
They're
everyone.
not intrusive.
No,
I
they're
really
not.
don't think they're
They-
intrusive at
we're-
all.
It's not, well.
It's
I
not
wish
about
they
being
weren't
intrusive, it's more about, we're not seeing any results, we're not seeing them be a part, we're not seeing
Right.
them.
It depends on the county.
Yeah.
The new program where it's parents of minor children can be paid under certain circumstances. The SSA has to have monthly contact and at least every other month actually do a site
A
visit.
face-to-face.
A face-to-face
So,
visit.
so they have specific things that they have to meet in regards to communication and site
Right.
visits.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
is
only
that
like
somewhere
one,
on-
That's a
for
high
the
rise.
average adult, it's once a year. But they have to respond. And they,
But that's for providers, like, so if I were his provider and he was a minor, that's more intense, they have to come in and.
That's the
right,
cost.
it's really paid, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Coming
So,
to the table.
but it really depends. They're supposed to
I
be
know
the
the phone call was
primary
dead.
source of, like any case manager.
You
And
know-
need to coordinate.
You got
But
quite-
if you don't have any problems and everyone, so we have families that spend the winter in Florida. And if your county feels comfortable and the parent is being paid as the provider, if the county feels comfortable that, yeah, you're fine in Florida for the winter, they can do
Then you
that.
don't have to.
We have individuals that are going to college out of state, and if the county feels comfortable that your health and safety is protected, and you've arranged for staff out of state that are paid, it's really, it's that comfort level with you as the parent as well as the provider and the individual.
We cruise everywhere.
Yeah.
So what happens when I have a DD caseworker tell me that they dropped services for a client and they won't engage with them?
They
They
can
already
do
have a
that.
waiver.
If I'm on a waiver, the county has a right to knock on my door and say, hey, how are you? And if I say, you're not coming into my house, the hardest concept for Medicaid is that Medicaid and waivers are welfare. It is the welfare system, whether we like it or not.
Right.
And it's like telling the welfare worker, you can't come into my house. You're not allowed to check on me. And there's public funds being there to support. And yeah, so the only way you can lose a waiver is if I'm not Medicaid eligible anymore, I won the lottery, I stopped functioning like a person with a disability, which means I no longer meet level of care, or I refuse to allow them to check on me, or if everyone in the team has agreed to, give you one example, it's been 25 years ago, the federal government did a site visit in Ohio, and they visited a man in Columbus with diabetes and on a waiver, and there was a box of Twinkies under his bed. And everyone knew that it was dangerous for him to be eating Twinkies because he had severe diabetes. And the people at the time said, well, he has a right to eat Twinkies. And the federal government said, not on our dime. We have a responsibility to make sure he's healthy and safe. And he's purposely violating his service plan by eating Twinkies. They didn't knock him off, but it was the extreme example.
Yeah.
The county and the state has a responsibility to make sure I'm healthy and safe.
Does that go with locking the refrigerator with the restrictions or nothing?
Yeah, it's the rights violations, pardon me? Oh, yeah, the other one is if you haven't used your waiver
Yes.
in a year, you can lose it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you to talk about the,
We
And
have
I've
use it or
had
lose it.
parents who are fed up with the system, and so in this instance, it's a minor,
Mhm.
and she was going to sever DD. And I think some of the
We've had
things
that.
are in motion, so, she's
Yeah.
fostering, adopted, I should say. So like natural parents are out of the picture, and she was going to sever, so I don't know where Social Security lies, I don't know where Medicaid lies, but I was like, I don't know if you wanna do that, she's like, why shouldn't I? And that's the question.
No, it's like when the National Rifle Association cried for my dead cold hands.
Yeah.
Once you get it,
You
no,
don't let it go.
no. Change
Even
it,
if
work
it's
with
a
us to
bad
modify
level
it,
one.
but
And we
Still do
lose.
the-
you've got that entitlement and you're gonna get it back.
Okay.
Yeah, even if it's, so people were saying, the IO waiver is the platinum card, how do I get it, how do I get it? Well, if you've got a level 1 waiver and you haven't used it yet, it doesn't matter why you haven't used
Yeah,
it.
that's the kid, yeah.
You survive. If you're still alive and your kid's still alive, you survive. So it doesn't matter that you can't find a provider. In the system's eyes, you made it. So obviously you didn't need it. If you survived, you didn't need it. I might be ready to be institutionalized myself, but
Right,
I
I
made
was
it.
gonna say.
You know,
That's
it
not
is the
cool.
welfare system.
Well, even when we
It's
talk
just-
about
Yeah, I know you had
stable and
more.
unstable,
You
right?
had more
Yeah.
questions.
If your norm is unstable,
I'll email
Then
you.
you're
I have a lot
safe.
of questions about the school.
right?
How
That's what I mean, that's
support
how
parents,
crazy
pass
some of
along
it is.
information.
Okay, are you part of the, do you work in the system too?
I'm the high school supervisor at Lancaster.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've been asked to, what's it called, pre-vocational counseling in
Oh,
schools?
pre-eds?
Korea.
Yeah, pre-eds, yeah.
Yes, I didn't know what it was, but we've been
Yeah.
asked to do it. And, cause we employ parents.
We have several providers that come into the school.
Okay, and the food thought it would be a good idea to have, we do kinda have parents go in and talk to, and professionals, parents who are professionals go in. So we have, my official title was president and CEO. Dave is executive vice president.
and COO,
Uh,
COO.
well, he used to be COO, now he's executive vice president.
You're no longer a COO?
No, tell him what your job description is.
Oh, I don't wanna say that today.
That's all right.
It's everything he doesn't want to do. How about that? How about that?
But then we have our Family Choice Program that employs over 350 primarily family members through waivers. We have an assistive technology program. We have a durable medical equipment program. Durable medical equipment is what you get with your Medicaid card. Assistive tech is what you get with your waiver. So if you need a Ring doorbell,
Okay.
because you'll open the door for the stranger who's ringing your doorbell, that you can only see on your phone, your waiver will pay for that.
Yeah.
Seriously?
It will
Can
also
I go
pay
get
for.
the Ohio Rise and have them do that? Can I
Your-
use that through the Ohio Rise?
Your Medicaid card will pay for some durable medical equipment that might include
The
that.
waiver is the payer of last resort.
Because-
Yeah, so Ohio Rise has some stuff, but not,
Everything.
because it's still more medically involved than,
It'll give you a
DD waivers are quality of life and health and safety, and the medical waivers are more about, I would say,
I can
they're
give
based more on nursing homes. You don't go into a nursing home to get better. You go into a nursing home to be maintained
Yeah.
or to relearn skills you lost because of a stroke or an accident. DD waivers assume you never had those skills to begin
To
with,
begin with.
or we're gonna teach you new skills or enhance what you already have.
The difference between habilitated and
It's
rehabilitated.
just our system is
What it is.
entirely, Medicaid thinks with its head, we think with our heart. So
I-
we are
I
not
can give a
always
good
rational.
example.
It's not, it's, it's just different.
Gary, I can give a real good example of that. So my son used to be on what was called the TDD waiver. So I was a Medicaid provider before I became a DODD provider. So when I went to my compliance review, she's looking at it, she goes, want to know what kind of medical stuff? I said, well, he has a brain injury. He's the same every day. Well, at least write down what color his urine is. I want to know what color his urine is every day. That's what she wanted to know. So, I mean, he had a brain injury. He was the same every day. When I switched over to DODD, they took, oh, you went and saw the movie. That was great. What movie did you see? I had that on my Medicaid paperwork. They didn't want that. They said, take that off. We don't want to know anything about why you do socially. DODD is the opposite. They want to know what he's doing socially.
On the Medicaid waivers, if a person comes in to make your food, your dinner, they're not supposed to eat with you. They're supposed to make your food
Right.
and make sure you don't choke, like in the hospital or the nursing home. On the DD side, we'd be offended if you didn't sit down and have dinner with us.
Right.
Because we're teaching
Because you're
social
supposed to
skills.
Social skills.
We're
right.
modeling the behavior, we're doing all of this other kind of stuff, and you're in my house, I'm not real happy about having a stranger in my house anyway, come on, sit down. So it's real, it is different. We teach, Dave and I teach the social workers at Nationwide, and they're in a hospital setting, and it's like different. You've been there, it's like,
Yeah.
no, it's not, that's why the fuzziness, that's our system. It is fuzzy, and then we also slap people on the wrist. It's not always fuzzy.
I did want to say something on your residence thing, but I'm thinking of it, I'm putting things away. When you go, and you guys aren't close to 22 yet, but when you go to apply for food stamps, they will want your rent separated from your utilities. So like he's saying 700 is the average now, 650, 750, that's the average rent now. So you would write it up as $650 rent, $100 toward utilities. And that's how you would write your paperwork up.
Yeah, but yeah, he'll get food stamps.
Oh yeah, about $200 worth a month, roughly.
I've applied for those.
Yeah.
We've
and
never
if you-
applied
if it
for
offends
that.
you
Oh,
to
absolutely
use them,
applied.
fine,
Oh, my
you can
goodness.
donate it.
I know, it doesn't,
Well,
those are things I just don't.
But we have some
Again,
families
I've been
that
in a,
you can't give them back.
Even if he doesn't qualify, get your Medicaid food stamp card because it's good for Museums for All.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of that?
Even
So-
COSI or.
Yeah, COSI, you get them for $4.
Yeah.
I thought the
Henry-
Medicaid card did that for us.
It can do both.
Okay.
Right,
Some of them take the food card, some of them want the Medicaid card.
Okay.
right.
And make yourself up an ID and say, I am the provider. You will get in movies free, you will get in COSI
You get to
free.
Cedar Point for free.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, that's right, and Kings Island.
Oh, it says you're a Medicaid provider, you get in all the
You
places.
are a care provider, as long as you're with your client.
And you get in, like, all the movies?
See you later.
depends.
Sarah, I'm
How about
taking
the Columbus Zoo?
Columbus Zoo,
Sarah
yes.
Point, you can write all the
Because
When
we're
I
going
travel-
with a group, we're gonna go to the zoo with some other,
So
another.
here's
When
my
I
recommendation.
travel, if I know where I'm going, I call ahead, say, hey, do you do this, do you do this,
Think about
We're going down to the Arkham Conference.
situation.
Oh, I'd love to go
I'm
there.
gonna get it there for $4 each, because he has a Medicaid food card. They have a Medicaid.
He had Medicaid food card.
He has, well, food card comes with Medicaid.
So I did.
We didn't
that.
ever got him a
My
food
initial
card.
meeting
So you need to get him a food card,
with
but just
the-
email them and say, oh, no, you know what? It was just with the
I think you
provider.
had to apply for SNAP.
And the
Getting
EBT
them
is
done.
the
Yeah,
same
you gotta
thing.
apply for
I
SNAP,
wrote them
don't you?
out,
It's the
and I
same
just went
thing.
through
SNAP
them,
and EBT
and I
is the
got
same
Okay,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, hold on.
non-answers.
Yeah, I know how to do that.
No,
I
I
just
wanna
never
say
have.
something,
Yeah,
I
think
don't
that
remember
might have
what
been
it was.
Or
Let me go.
he didn't want to get.
We haven't done that.
Am I
Now
off
we get her
camera
into
yet?
the zoo, some of these
Am I off
places
camera
for
yet?
cheap.
Yeah, absolutely.
Becky, is the camera dead?
Shut it down.
Shut it down.